Now we're rolling. How about that? You are listening to a Chatter Effect. Folks, again, these are not interviews. They are conversations. Say hello to Jen Lowe. Jen Lowe, say hello to everybody.
Hi, everybody.
This is amazing because you're not the first violinist that I have had on. But man, people have talked to me about you, even though I've known you for a while, and told me that you're you're the supreme queen of the violin business in the city of Chicago and beyond. But the city of Chicago, you know, third biggest market in the country, you are a big deal and you're a badass. This is a woman who's talented, you know, and there are a lot of talented musicians out there, but somebody who has built a business and has made a model worth following. And now she's like going to Vegas, performing with Chicago, performing on tour with them. And you have like teams out. You know, it's like you're the head of like the violin Navy SEAL team. You're like, go, go, go. We've got somebody in Aurora. We've got a field team in Chicago. It's amazing. So this is why, you know, I love you dearly because we've known each other for a minute now. But you're on the mic because I need to know about this, the all-powerful
You just made me feel so much better because
Oh, really?
most days it doesn't feel like Navy SEALs. It feels a little more chaotic than that. But yeah, that's kind of what I do.
It's lonely at the top, too, you know?
Yeah, well, except I got good people. Those are my SEAls, baby.
Yeah. All right. No, but it gets tough when you're the one in charge. I think it's always going to be the toughest.
Yeah, it is.
So I'm so interested in this. And on top of that, she coins a great phrase and she's a lot of fun. So you guys are going to love her.
Yay.
Yeah.
Thanks, Robbie.
Yeah, good.
You're the best.
You and I were on a gig in Hawaii. And that was a stressful gig for me. Oh man, I was on a lawn chair. I found a lawn chair in the middle of nowhere, and you were taking a walk. Mm-hmm. And then you stopped, and I think I even said something like, "Yeah, you know, just chilling, you know." And I think we both kind of agreed on this, like, yeah, you know, let's just chat for a couple minutes.
Anybody taking this chair?
Yeah, but it turned into. I remember it almost started out like I was going to keep lounging, you were going to keep walking. It started out as this, like, yeah, well, let's just chat for a little bit, you know, and then I'll be on my way. I'm like, yeah, and I'm gonna lay here, and I don't know if it was an hour.
Yeah,
a lot of time passed.
It was a serious sunburn later.
Yeah,
we both kind of wrapped up in our
That's
towels
true.
and went back.
That's right.
To the hotel.
We didn't even notice. We were so involved.
Totally engrossed.
Oh, we were so engrossed in the conversation that we didn't smell our skin sizzling. Mm-hmm. So
that's right.
That's what got into you know, the line of thought that I just enjoy being around you.
Yeah, thanks.
You know, so there's that. But then the more I've heard about you, people say good things about you.
Thank you.
Behind and around and on the side of your back.
And that's a big deal. I know you and I were talking before we started about people who don't say nice things about other people, and we call that a red flag.
That's a red flag. Yeah, looking for the red flags.
Yeah, man, it's cool.
Trombone player Chris Shuttlesworth. You know him, right?
Chris, dude.
He was talking about you, and we were checking out an act, and he was specifically talking about you because he wants to, in a way, be you. Because he books horn sections.
Dude. He's badass.
So Jen will take. She has her crew. For one thing, tell everybody the name of your act.
Okay, so
there might be a few names.
My greater claim to fame is a group I call the Girls Violin Show, and true to its name, we play cover tunes and we are girls. So, and the sort of the twist of the name is we also then kind of our tagline is part rock, part runway, all talent. So
that's cool.
We dress up. We also have choreography, and we do a show. We put on a show. So these are some very, very talented, also amazingly wonderful humans, though I'm very blessed to have, you know, I can tell that story at some point too, our little baby story, our story of origin. But we have been together for 11 years, and it's still the same crew. So that's what I'm most proud of, is that these 4 women plus myself all started together in 2009. So 2020 will be our 11th year. And we have started from just kind of like a glimmer in the eye of, gee, wouldn't it be fun, to this year we will probably be very close to doing 100 dates this year.
Really?
Yeah, 100 dates here in Chicago and around the country, and as you mentioned, with Chicago and things like that too. So anyway, but we do a show. We knock them dead. We're kind of in the business of bending minds. I know the whole rock string thing is kind of a a fad for right now, and I'm actually kind of glad about that because as a young violinist, I was a little bit of a fish out of water. I didn't have a sight line. I didn't have a view on my horizon of something that I could do with the violin that was completely satisfying. So my background is I have a dance background. I also have an acting background. Obviously music background and things like that too. So I always had to go to three different, kind of like categories in my life. I always had sort of like three plates spinning at the same time. I would be going off to acting auditions, or I would be going to, I was a pom-pom girl dancer for the Milwaukee Bucks.
What?
Energy dance team. Yeah. So I've done the whole pom-pom thing. I was captain of the pom-pom squad at UW-Madison when I was there. So yeah, the cheerleading thing, unfortunately, kind of really shows in this violin group. It's kind of funny.
Well,
I mentioned that to somebody,
from...
and I mentioned that to somebody after a gig, and like, how did this group start? And I, mentioned that thing, and they're like, oh God, yeah, we can totally.
Well, the
tell.
precision looks a little more dance. But I think the energy and the kind of the vibe that you put off, especially like the facial expressions,
that's
feel
the
like that's the
thing.
thing you have to sell like in a cheerleading kind of scenario.
It's definitely, we are definitely like, crowd pumpers, like we'll get out
Yeah.
there and we'll get the crowd going, and, we're playing Led Zeppelin, we're playing Lady Gaga, we're doing, all this fun stuff that people, again, like sort of, we're in the business of bending minds.
Guys, you have no idea. It's a very attractive group of people, but they can play.
Yeah.
So it's not a joke. I mean, musically, it's the real deal. I mean, they're playing at a high level, but they're playing accessible music, and they look amazing. I mean, they're gorgeous. Every one more gorgeous than the other. And then they're doing choreography, and sometimes there are costume changes. I've seen you and I did kind of a rock show, and then you guys kind of did more of like a rock hot vibe, know. And then I've seen the gowns. So it's like every look and every scenario, and it looks cool. I like the fact that you guys can do something on a big stage, but then sometimes you're in the middle of the floor, which actually I think that's my favorite, and I think that's what the crowd likes too, when you're right on the floor.
Yeah.
And you guys are doing all this choreography and stuff. But the acting and the dancing, and it's so funny how that kind of combines. I think some people with acting chops and a dance background don't always have this fantastic violin skill. So it's so weird that in some scenarios that might be something that holds someone back from kind of this sort of rock star or front person status. Yet you're one of the few that you were able to actually use it to your advantage and create a show around it. I mean, you've made it the show, which is
it is. It's pretty cool. I have to say, I feel like I'm blessed to have pulled that out of a hat in a sense, because it really was something where maybe 15 years ago I was not particularly happy doing what I was doing. I was actually, to be honest, struggling with a bit of anxiety.
Sure.
I had come up as a classical player, as most of us do, although everybody in this group has a crazy story. You had Zara on.
Yeah, guys, look up Zara if you haven't heard that one. It's the craziest, funniest first 15 minutes of any episode I've ever done. Just trying
Zara's
to wrangle
amazing.
Zara.
So yeah,
but yeah.
So everyone has a different story of how they got here, but.
Oh, you need a good cough, don't you?
Excuse me. No, it's just winter.
Oh. It is, man. It's snowing.
But anyway, so pulling this together.
Well, hold on. I want to back it up.
Yeah, please.
A little bit even further, because when you first started out 15 years ago as a player, what was the gig for you? What were you doing 15, 20 years ago, whatever? Before this, as a violinist, what was your main gig?
Okay, so I was splitting my time between serious classical music. I was playing in local orchestras. I was doing a lot of weddings, classical weddings and things like that. I do a lot of church concerts, cantatas, Christmas programs, you name it.
So you were working.
I was working. I was also, before I moved to Chicago, I lived in Milwaukee, and I was was in the Milwaukee Ballet Orchestra, so I did a lot of pit work. I did a lot of what I call the schlep orchestras, where we go around, and you're rehearsing 4 nights a week for a show that weekend, kind of a thing. So, so pretty heavy duty classical track on one side, and then the flip side was the stuff that most people kind of think is sort of fluff and just kind of fun, which is playing on these wedding bands, and that's a thing now. Is like these wedding bands, have like a rock string section. Like mentioned Chris Shuttleworth, he's trying to do the rock horn section.
Yeah.
So, so that whole activity is something that I consider to be just kind of like something fun and loose to do. But what ended up happening was I found myself just out of the blue, shocking, maybe, I don't know how many years ago now, but more than 10 years ago, obviously, feeling like I was going to pass out in the middle of a orchestra concert. I was on stage in front of maybe 1,000, 2,000 people in an auditorium in the middle of a concert, and all of a sudden, anyone who's had a panic attack would know what that flush feels like. Like all of a sudden you're breaking out in a sweat, and all of a sudden your heart is racing, and all of a sudden you can't catch your breath, and all of a sudden you start seeing the lights kind of go, like you might just tip over and fall down. So I had never had that happen. It just happened in the middle of a phrase of a song. And anyway, so I did what you don't do. You take your purse, you get up, and you walk out through the section while they're playing, and you go off stage. And I went and sat on a chair, and it didn't help, and I had to lay on the ground, and it didn't help, and they called 911. And of course, in those 3 minutes or whatever it took for them to get there, it all subsided, and they got there, and they're like, "There's nothing wrong with you." They just laughed at me, Not, they didn't.
God.
They were very kind, but they felt like they were just, they're like, no, you're fine.
That, in those 3 to 5 minutes, things
yeah,
were really,
I'm dying.
really bad. And
I'm dying.
It affected you physically. So now, did you speak to somebody, or did you have to just do some kind of self-searching to figure out what is causing this?
Well, I called my primary physician, and then he said, yeah, probably good to get some tests run, and of course all the tests came back normal. So then what do you do? So now I've got this big thing is like, crap, what if it happens again? Because it's terrifying. Anybody who knows out there, it's terrifying. And you also then know that the minute you have the idea of having one, you're going to get one. So that just became this horrible kind of snowball in my life where I had to start turning down work. Classical work, because I would ask the situation, I'd be like, can I sit in the back of the second violin section, which is closest to the stage doors, so that if something happens, I can just sneak off stage and not have to walk over everybody to get off stage.
Poor thing.
So I was doing that anyway, blah, blah, blah. So basically it caused me to, over time, just stop taking any of my classical work. So it was a game changer for me. There was a time when I thought I was maybe going to just be a life coach, and totally change tracks. I mean, I have a lot of other interests, obviously. Anyway, so I look back at that now, from where I sit right now, busier than I've ever been, just gotten done, basically touring with Chicago, playing the violin, going, that anxiety was the best freaking thing that ever happened to me.
And I'm no therapist, but obviously it wasn't the anxiety of just, the weight of the world and the job, because your job now must be more
it's
insane
way more intense
and intense than it's ever been.
But you know what
but
it
that
is?
was more a placement of life.
It's fun.
Yeah.
What I wasn't having before was fun, and I look back at that now, and of course, I've done a lot of, therapy around it and some soul searching around it, and took medication for a while, but now I don't have to because, I get it. It was Wow. It was the posture of being a classical player. It was the precision of being a classical player. It was the mindset, that neural pathway that you, I don't know, I speak for myself only, develop since I was 4 years old about, pitch and intonation and phrasing and this and that. And then there's, all the crazy self-talk that you get into when you're in a profession that demands perfection. It's this perfectionist tendency that I already have, just was being like, it was like finger in a socket. It was being overblown. So I blew that neural pathway is just kind of how I look at it. So the classical neural pathway had to shut its door. And then I had to go, build a build something more fun for myself. And that was really where I took a look and sat down and said, all right, I love to dance. I love to, sing and play and move around, and I love to perform. I think that's mostly what it is. I feel I'm more of a performer than a musician in a way. But what can I do with that? So dang it, it's like, da-da-da-da-da. And then, I'll make the long story short. The CoverGirls came into existence.
So this is brilliant because not only did you have to find your happy place, and you have all these abilities and all these these joys that were so spread out, and that's a heck of a hat trick trying to get all that into one place.
Yeah.
And I think that's the goal for anybody listening. You find out what you love and see if you can make a living out of doing it, and if you can't, you can still figure out. If I didn't make a living doing this full time as a singer.
Yeah.
I'd hold my daytime job, whatever that would have ended up being, and I'd still sing on weekends
Absolutely.
for fun. I'd still, to this day, we were just talking about it. I do 1 or 2 gigs, a month, this unplugged thing, for the pure joy of it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
they don't know that I would do it for free because I want their money.
Hopefully they're not
listening. but I would do it for free. I would do it for free, and we need that. But I think it's a great goal to figure out if you can monetize what you love. And if it doesn't work, that doesn't mean you failed, because then it turns into a hobby.
Yeah.
If it does work, well, great. Home run.
Called life balance,
Yeah,
I
man.
mean, the only downside of living the dream that I am is that I don't have a hobby, because my hobby is my life.
Right. Well, the other thing too is, and for anybody that doesn't nail it down, for anybody that can't create an entire income and livelihood around their love, there's always another side to it, because the downside is, we in our you and I kind of both work in kind of a management field as well.
Yeah.
The downside to it is we also have these like super high levels of stress and things that come along with all that.
Yep.
So yeah, we're living the dream, and I hear that all the time from anyone that maybe has known me from the past, or anyone that wants this and doesn't have it, and not for lack of talent, because there's a lot of other parts to just being good at what you do. But they don't see that, oh man, it's also really tough. There's a lot,
Well,
but,
you are where you are also because you're good. You're good with people. I mean, how much of our conversation on the beach was about that? About just sharing experiences about how you deal with a difficult situation. So it's definitely a lot to do what we do and make it look easy and make it look like we're living the dream. But
that's well put. Yeah. But I mean, here's the thing that really fascinates me, because I'm glad that you managed to do that, and I've seen it done before, and rarely. Especially you have an interesting tale, because those are, I've seen somebody, oh man, I really wanted to be an actor, and I didn't get any film roles, but I've managed to work in Chicago theater and I'm making a living doing it, and blah, blah, blah. I've seen that. But to see like, oh man, I really like dancing, but then acting, and then there's this violin thing, like that, you have the most interesting stew that you had to make it work.
True.
But on top of that, you have to be a smart business person. So like, that's what I like about this. This is kind of an all-inclusive chat, because it's also talking about building a business and building a brand. Like this can relate to anybody. There's somebody out there right now that might be in a similar situation, with a 3-parter that just doesn't, oh man, I just, I love acting, and I love just baking, and I love
right, dude, there's a cooking show for you.
I love playing Thumb Wars. Like those are my 3 things. Well, hey, Jack or Jill, like get out there and try it, because you never know, you might have like the first cooking Thumb War acting show. That's ever been put out there.
Sorry.
Anything is possible. You're the perfect example of that. Like, go for it.
Totally.
Because people think actor, dancer, violinist. You don't necessarily think. The best that you would think is that maybe you would get a part as a violinist in Glee. like
or
a
like
side
on Empire
role.
or something,
like a little role in a
exactly.
movie, but you built it. And so then, all right, here's where I really want to back up then, because so you figure out, first off, well, your body tells you, this ain't right.
Yeah, right.
Which is, good for the body, I guess.
You got to listen.
Yeah, and I'm glad it just caused that moment, instead of like, let's throw ourselves off a building. Like, I'm so glad it wasn't that bad.
Yeah.
But bad enough to make you go, oh, wait
Yeah.
a minute,
Yeah.
So good for your body kind of, giving you that shake. And then good for you being able to turn it, into a positive thing. I'm sure that wasn't a 10-minute ordeal.
No.
I'm sure that was a painful process to kind of find yourself, I mean,
Yeah.
your
It
body's
took years. I will,
Yeah.
for full disclosure, it took years.
Sure.
To and then there's another, nothing happens in isolation. The other compounding factor in the starting of the Cover Girls was that I had already started a similar group previously. So again, this was not just a strike of lightning and it all worked fine the first time I, took it out and drove it.
How'd the idea hit you though for that product? I've seen the
Yeah.
product before. I was on tour somewhere, and a Vegas act came through, and they were doing
everything's a
similar
little
thing.
different. There are a lot of rock violin groups, a lot of female rock violin groups right now. My little disclaimer about that is that when we first started the Cover Girls, I had a lot of well-meaning people sending me links to things and YouTube videos and saying, "Oh, dude, I see. Look, check this out. You guys could do something like this." And I'm like, "Oh man, thanks so much for sending that. That's great." And I never watch them because I don't want to be influenced.
Oh, how about that?
Because
Okay.
the way this came about.
Yeah, I want to know the light bulb moment for
the light
this
bulb moment.
product.
Okay, so unfortunately, it's like life. It evolved. So I was working in Chicago for an entertainment office. There were several bands in this office, and I was doing a variation of what I also do besides the Cover Girls, which is book strings for bands.
Okay.
And that's how you and I met.
Yeah.
Doing these rock string sections for big galas and parties and things like that. So I was working for this office, contracting the string sections, also performing in one of the bands. And the gentleman, we'll call him Person A, was
He's in
working
prison
on-
now.
No,
apparently.
I know that's
military,
a little too close.
military
right, exactly.
prison. No, sure. He's on the lam. Person A.
Was trying to build his business and going to workshops around the country and trying to learn about when you have a brand. Speaking of brands, there is a kind of a financial philosophy that a single person can build a brand up to. It seems to be apparently sort of $1 million mark. Like with hard work and goodwill and some talent, you can build your brand up to being maybe $1 million product. But if you want to surpass that, and if you want to break through that, the idea is you need to harness the skills and the creativity and the fresh ideas of the people around you. And then you take that synergy and it takes you past the $1 million mark. And so that was like sort of, let's call it workshop number one. So Person A comes back and he's looking around his workshop, and he says, and he's looking around his office, and he approached me and he said, "You know what? What would be your dream gig?" And I just knew, I already knew. And I said, well, I would want to, and granted, this was probably 15, maybe almost 20 years ago. I want to stand on a stage wearing leather pants and play Stairway to Heaven, on violin. Anyway, and his jaw dropped and he was just like, oh my God, I want it right now. So we were able to, and he said, I'll make my resources available to you. You can have my band, my arranger. We'll use the other violins in the section too. And that was where I was kind of like, hey, this is great. If we're out on the dance floor, we can do some choreography. I pulled on my dance experience and stuff like that. So we started doing these little dinner shows. Like we would just step off the stage and play 3 or 4 songs.
Hold on. At that time, were the people at your disposal capable of doing it? Because then you're suddenly turning those
they were simple.
into...
The simple moves, and
Okay.
and we had a bunch of rehearsals and stuff, and it was super fun, and I was super energized to do this. So when we were getting some traction, we were starting to get some actual requests for people saying, yeah, your band is great. Can we hire the violins?
Wow, that's a good good sign.
and he's just kind of like, yeah, well, we'll throw in the band with the violins, kind of a thing.
Wow.
So anyway, so it was doing well, and then Person A went off to another workshop. One of his business coaching sessions, came back and said, okay, great. Now that you have energized your team, and you've gotten some creative ideas, and you've got some new products that you can sell, now you need to own them. Now you need to secure them and make sure that they stay within your business and
How do you
stay
do
within
that?
your brand. You have them sign contracts.
Ah, nice. Okay.
So my contract came with a very special clause that basically said that person A I was required to sign over all the intellectual property of this group to that office. Now, when he came to me originally and I gave him that idea, he let me have full run. It's like I picked the set list, I picked the wardrobe, I did all the choreography, I handled all the rehearsals. Basically the only thing he came up with was the name. So the name was something he owned, but the rest of it was stuff that just came straight out of me. And so
Was that Cover Girls at the time,
no,
or no?
no,
Okay,
it
this
was
is
another
your
group.
first incarnation.
This was another group
Gotcha.
who shall remain nameless, and they're still working, and they're good
good.
friends of mine. So
Okay.
Anyway, but that was the closest thing to a divorce as I've ever experienced, is that I had to walk away from that.
What
whole
was the
thing.
moment? Like, what made
The
you
moment
decide
was
that?
the moment was that having to sign the intellectual property rights over to his company, that I was no longer going to basically control this idea that I had had.
And you knew this was a great idea. This was
Yes.
kind of your baby.
Yes. And it was one of those things where it was like, that was the light bulb moment, was I have to leave. I have to leave this really good contracting job. Like I said, working for all these different bands. I was making good money. Literally walk away from that in order to be able to start this over
How do you have
again.
the guts to do that? Because that's scary. You're
is
leaving
really scary.
security, and
Totally
then you're
scary.
not only are you're
Yeah.
you're taking your idea. You know it's a great idea,
Mm-hmm.
but you're jumping into a realm that's even more new at the
Yeah.
same time. Suddenly you're doing what that guy was doing. You have to be totally secure that
Yeah.
you can do it.
You
You have to figure out how to do it. That's a scary jump, man.
Big time. Big
You're the
time.
Rocky of violinists.
Hey, coming from you, that's a compliment.
Do you
I
know
think you're a
that?
full fan.
Well, that guy, I heard, maybe it probably wasn't. I don't think you were cleaning out zoo animals' poop, and he just had $100 in his account. I think Sylvester Stallone had like $100 in his account, a pregnant wife, and
Oh my
he had
gosh.
this story called Rocky, and he's shopping around town, and people were willing to buy it, but he's a nobody, so they didn't want him to be in it. They wanted De Niro or these famous actors, and they kept saying no, no, no. And this man is running out of life money.
Totally.
And he just kept saying, no, I only sell this. And at some point, they offered him something like $250,000 or something. And this is like early 70s.
Yeah.
That would have changed his entire life.
Sure.
Still said no because he just believed that he needed to be that guy. And the rest is history, obviously.
Wow.
But I mean, it's similar. I mean, you knew you had this idea; it was
Yep.
yours.
Yep.
And then the safety net of that other company,
Yep.
that just felt so right. And all of a sudden, no, you're walking away from that.
I'm
That's
walking
bold,
away.
man.
Yeah.
That's come on. I'm high fiving you. That's dude. So okay.
Thank
What
you.
is step one first? Because I'm sure there's that moment. You're like, yeah, I did this. I've done it. I've accomplished it. Oh my God.
Yeah, now what? Right, exactly. And now what? Yeah, congratulations, you're now unemployed. Okay, so first step was getting together with a really helpful friend who said, let's break this down. Because to your point, I didn't have the resources that I had relied on in that office. And so who's going to do your arrangements? What are you guys going to use for backing tracks? And then, most importantly, well, first of all, now how do you get gigs?
Right.
Because the gigs were coming through that office, man. I mean, so I've got this idea, but I don't have gigs. I don't have people. I don't have arrangements.
Let's talk about this because that's what I'm really interested in because the musical side of it, you have enough of a background to where arrangements, tracks, I mean, not that that's easy. That's not easy at all.
Sure.
But at least you're a musician and there are people that I feel like that's an easier task to at least look for those
That's a
people.
known community.
Right. But as far as payroll, as far as branding it yourself, selling it, how the hell did you do that? Like, how'd you figure all that out?
Okay, this is the
great.
part. This is the part I'm actually most proud of, and I'm hoping is most helpful to anyone who might be in a similar situation.
Yeah.
I totally built this out of things that I love. Just starting in no particular order, our brand color is purple because that's my favorite color. I buy the dresses online that I would want to wear. I play the music that I love. I feel a bit selfish in a way that I'm not really considering many other people in a lot of these choices.
Yeah, this is great.
But on the other hand of that, I mean, on the more not being quite so flippant about that, I feel like I'm a pretty good everyman. I don't have, I feel like I'm a pretty good, just mainstream person. I mean, if it's a song I know, chances are other people know it. I don't have like extreme tastes in music. So I figure if it's a song that I grew up with or that I know all the words to, there's a good chance other people will too. So that's kind of how I at least picked the set list. But
that combination, by the way, just the fact that your taste happens to be popular music, and you're not afraid to still do what you love. I mean, that's, because they're going to get something, and that's a great combination. They're going to get something that's been proven because you like popular music, but also they're going to get the best version that you can give because you love that music while you're doing it.
Oh yeah, I'm singing along while I'm playing it. You can't
beat
not.
the combination.
Totally.
So already that's a winning formula right there.
Yeah. So that's the set. So the set list is really kind of just comes from songs, and it can even be in the grocery store. I can be in Jewel and hear a song that I forgot about. I forgot about that song. I love that song. So, we'll go work that up, kind of a thing.
Do you bring your violin everywhere you go so that in case you hear that, you can just pull it out and they're like, there's a lady in the meat department right now.
Although, that's
she's
legit.
Playing Rock of Ages.
That's like a legit story though, because all of our friends play like at Mariano's and stuff, I mean.
This lady, she says she's inspired. She asked us to turn up the
muzak.
The muzak. Oh, and she'd like a pound of low sodium turkey. Can we do that, please?
Right, exactly.
Turn up, come sail away, and get the turkey to this beautiful lady with the violin by the meat department. So that's still, but then that's still artistic, but that's great. Now,
and as far as the biz goes,
the biz, all that.
So we didn't have a job, and this is the catch-22 in our business. Is anybody that's ever tried to start a band knows that you can't get players to commit to you if you don't have a gig, but you can't get a gig if you don't have players. So that's the luck of the situation was I had talked to enough people about the fact that I was gonna do this on my own, and I was gonna start up this group, and it was gonna be called the Cover Girls, because that just literally came to me. I just woke up one morning and knew that was what it was called.
Now, when you say you talk to people,
just my friends, people in the music community. Sorry, people in the music community. One of whom ended up being the seed for the whole thing, because he came back to me and he says,
Person A?
This is person B.
Hi.
Came back to me and said, I think I might have a gig for you guys, and it's in like 4 months, which is like that perfect magical amount of time. It's like nowhere near enough to do it, but just long enough to say, let's try it. Yeah. So anyway, so we had been invited to play a dinner show, like 20 minutes, which was great for a holiday party in December, and this was like August or something. So first thing I did was go through like my little mental Rolodex. I mean, being a freelance violinist in Chicago, like you said, so many talented people, and many of them beautiful, attractive, fun, engaging, all those good things.
By the way, wait till you guys Google her.
Oh my gosh.
She's beautiful and fun and attractive. You'll see right when you Google Jen Lowe. So
Cover Girls Violin Show.
Yeah, you'll see.
Plug number 1.
Boom.
Anyway, so I went through my little mental Rolodex of all the people I've encountered, and just thinking about certain things. And the one thing that I did have in mind was, I at the time wasn't sure that it was going to be legit if we just walked out there and played melodies. Like we just, like Living on a Prayer or something like that. And so what I wanted was, my one criteria for picking the women was people that I knew played in other genres, like hip hop or jazz or, Latin or country or things like that too. And like, maybe that would be a cool twist on some of these things. And I was thinking, so I was thinking of the women that I knew who fit all these filters. And the story that I love is that I closed my eyes and there were just women who had sparkles around them. And I called it fairy dust because that's what it sort of felt like. It felt like their names came in on fairy dust. And I don't know how to explain it any differently than that.
Wow.
And I trusted that. So that was part 2, was that, your body screams, you listen. The fairy dust brings you people, you ask them. So I called all these women and said, hey, I have this crazy idea of, I've got these purple electric violins and we would be wearing dresses and high heels and dancing. What do you think? Playing pop tunes. And every single one of them said, sure, why not? And I said, great, we have a gig in December. Let's get to work. And so, little did I know that these would become like sort of the most important people in my life. But that's I'm sorry that there wasn't more of a businessy explanation on how that came together. That was really pretty magical.
Walk me through gig number 1. Then.
So
how
gig
did that
number
gig
1
go? Yeah.
It went really well.
Yeah.
No, but here's really funny. So I had tried, of course, 4 months, like I said, is just not enough time to get everything together. We had to get a domain name and, business cards printed and, and not in addition to all the rehearsals and the charts and the memorizations and trying to get people to figure out how to dance. Because these are not dancers necessarily, and work that all through. So musically, it came together pretty well. Choreography-wise, it came together fine. What ended up happening, what that I wasn't expecting, was I had kind of a gaggle of people that followed us off the stage and went back to our dressing room with us afterwards looking for business cards.
Whoa.
Which was really great. I mean, maybe 5 or 6 people, but that's a lot, And so I had handed out some business cards. Thank you so much. And our mutual friend, Brian Schwab, was there shooting some photos for us for future use. And he goes, do you have a website? And I'm like, well, not yet. And he goes, is it on your business card? And I said, yeah, we've got the domain name. He goes, those people are going to go home and want to look you guys up because you had thought about that, right? And I'm like, oh crap. So we played our first gig. We packed up, we went home, and I stayed on Wix till 4 a.m. and I made a website that night us after the first gig because I knew that there would be up to 6 people looking for it.
That is amazing. So and good for him for giving you
that. I know, right? Exactly. I was like, I don't know why I didn't think of that. So,
anyway, done, man.
But that's how a lot of things happen. It's just they happen because they have to. Mm-hmm. So,
and it really is. I mean, you can't. I know a lot of people that are big idea people. Mm-hmm. They just, I've got this is a thing. I'm going to do this thing.
Yeah.
And I know a ton of them. I know a very small amount of people that actually come up with an idea and then work their butts off to do it.
Yeah.
And it takes all the effort in the world. You can talk about whatever, recording something, or you could talk. I get people who ask me about it took me a minute to figure out the whole Instagram online presence for my brand,
Which you're really good at.
It took me a long time to figure it out because I had to get over myself and I had to quit feeling insecure. Like my friends are just going to think I'm some sort of narcissistic jerk, And now it's like printing up a business card to me every time I'm like, hey, by the way, I'm in Hawaii. Or I'm in Rome right now, And I hear people even talking about that. Like, I have to do it. I have to do it. And I tell them all, and podcast people. I get a lot of people approaching me because of this show. Yeah. And I tell them,
I was asking you about that.
Right. And I tell them, just do it. You have to just do it. Once you break the ice, then it starts rolling. But I think that's the problem. So many people, I mean, kudos to you for just doing the work. And, and then you hear something. I know more people that would hear Brian Schwab say that wonderful piece of advice, like, oh, what the hell? You just put a website. I know more people that would say, yeah, I'll have to get to that. I'll have to do that and won't do it than I do people who will actually do it, and much less do it that same night after a show when you probably want to put your feet up, get the high heels off and just like relax because you've built to this moment, But instead of just taking the win and sitting back on your laurels, you thought twice and just boom, went right back to work after work. That is, man, it's the work. You got to put the work in.
You got to put the work in.
There's nobody out there, especially in our area, the people that I love bringing on this podcast, the people who are, again, that middle to upper middle class of entertainers, as I always call them, nobody's in this realm who hasn't worked really hard for it. And you get, I thank goodness to Jerry Seinfeld. I think I've quoted this before. I say quoted. I'm screwing it up. But he said he hates when people say, "Oh, you got lucky." And I used to love it when people tell me like, "Oh man, singing for a living or doing music for a living, you're lucky." And Jerry Seinfeld said, "Is it? Is it lucky that I decided not to get a regular job, put all of my eggs into this basket,
Yeah.
my resources, my
Yep.
work, my blood, sweat, and tears? Is
Yep.
that lucky?
Yeah.
That, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's really not, and actually shame on anyone that just thinks that when they see us doing it.
Absolutely, yeah. And
because-
I think I have a similar thing that has always stuck with me. I think it was Bonnie Raitt who said, God, it took me, 20 years to become an overnight success.
Yeah, I see
You
that
know?
in music a lot when there are people who have won like the best new artists who aren't just fresh off the American Idol boat,
Yeah.
and who've said, yeah, I'm the best new artist. I've been at this for 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
so-
only new to you.
So, did you even have like a price point? Because you have to figure out.
No, there's
that
no
whole
comps for
thing.
what we do. There's no comps for what we do. And so, actually I had a friend, again, so much of this was just talking to people and getting their opinions on things and then deciding what felt right or sounded right. And the opinion that worked for me in the pricing situation was, Jen, you just throw stuff at the wall. If you get yes more than no, chances are you could bump it a little. If you get no more than yes, you might have to take it down a little bit, but you just start somewhere. Because
Great
again,
tip.
there are no comps for doing this kind of entertainment. So we're after 11 years, I feel pretty comfortable about
But
about
early
where we
on-
are. But early on, that was it. It was just pick something and see how it feels. And important to pay your people well. I mean, getting into some of my own personal philosophy is that I made less than anybody, I think, in those opening years because, because I knew I had the right people and and I still do. So, it was a matter of keeping the group together, keeping the band together and making everybody happy. And then, at a certain point, I get to recoup a little bit and breathe a little easier. So that was part of it too. But man, and as far as like the biz goes and how did where did we get our gigs and things, there's an awful lot of just, like you said, the hard work. You can't overstate that, of just, chop wood, carry water every single day. But there's also an element in there for me that I was super surprised. If you were to ask me what has surprised you most doing this, and it would be that this group has an energy of its own. And I was armed with, like sort of my business persona to go out and beat the pavement and meet people and talk to people and hand them brochures or, promo folders or, things like that. And meet the venues and meet the party planners and stuff like that. And the more I tried that, the less work we got. And what ended up happening was that I just realized that I would wake up in the morning and I would go check the email, and like there were like somewhere really early in the first year we got an email from Deepak Chopra, and I thought it was spam. I thought it was like a like an ad or something like that, and I was like, dude, how does this come in on my business email? And it was literally his personal assistant saying, we saw you online, we want to invite your group out to California to play for the Sages and Scientists symposium that he's having over the weekend. And we would put you kind of throughout the weekend, we'd put you up, you could, have access to all the workshops and the speeches and the seminars and stuff like that. So anyway, so it was that weekend in that very first year that I like coined myself as the former director of the Cover Girls, because I feel like I am the steward of it. I feel like it goes where it wants to go. I get up in the morning, I answer its emails and I make its travel arrangements and stuff like that. But it's more than in me. It's the energy of the group, and it's that thing that people get energized about it, so
Wow.
yeah, so and in the category of things that I may have done differently
Yeah.
if I had known, we had gotten approached by, again, this is all in this first year, I should write a book. We got approached in the first year by America's Got Talent. They have scouts that go online, and if they're coming to Chicago to audition, they'll look up, whatever they look up. And anyway, so we were approached, again, one of these kind of, I thought it was a spam email, was, producer from America's Got Talent, think you guys would be a great addition to our show. Would you be interested in coming and auditioning? So we're talking, and this is another one of these like, oh my God, behind the scenes, how different things are on these shows, compared to what you're watching on Tuesday night or whatever.
Yeah.
And so we were basically pre-approved by these people. They said, you guys are original enough that we want you guys to be, we're going to move you to the head of the line, but here's what you're going to do. You're going to show up on cattle call day, and you're going to go in through this separate door. You're not going to go wait in line around the block like everybody else. You're going to go in the separate door. We're going to check you in, and then we're going to take video of you guys standing in line as if you were in the cattle call, because we have to build B-roll around you and around your experience here. So then they like sat us in the big, huge room where everybody sits and waits for hours and hours for their number to get called. And they shot sort of like staged pictures of us, like sleeping on our duffel bags and, things like that. I mean, it was really, really something. So we did this, we did the audition, and then we were asked to go to Minnesota. Minneapolis, and they made all our flight arrangements and stuff like that too, and we were thrilled. We're like, oh my god, this is so great. But here's the crazy thing. We had maybe 15 songs at this point. Like, I think we had maybe only had a couple of gigs. So we had like 15 songs that we knew. We had auditioned with Rich Girl, which is Gwen Stefani and Eve. Kind of had a rap thing that Zara does, so she plays the rap solo and improvises her butt off on it. And anyway, they were not able to get the rights. So as soon as you get to the television round, where you're actually in front of Piers Morgan and Sharon Osbourne and what's his name? The bald guy.
Howie Mandel.
Howie, thank you. So we got to be in front of them, but as soon as you get to the TV round, they have to do royalties to these artists. So if you are covering a song, they have to get
permission.
Have the permission to use those songs.
A lot of time there are
Gwen
major
Stefani,
fees.
right, exactly. So what I learned about that whole experience is that when you are on that, even though we made it to the first TV round, they probably have a budget at that point, and they won't go spend big bucks on whatever they call it, licensing for that first round. So they were not able to get the rights to Rich Girl for that. So like, well, what else do you got? So I went down like from like our really coolest number to like, okay, our sort of next really coolest number, and like so we started going back and forth day after day after day. Nope, can't get it. Nope, they won't give it to us. Nope, what else you got? Finally, just emailed them our whole list, and they couldn't do any of them. Wow. Apparently, I don't know why. I don't know if whatever. And so so I went to some crazy idea that I had where I was going to put together, like I was going to, do the quick change thing where we start off coming out playing a classical thing, and then it turns into like, play that funky music or something like that. So that was an old enough song that they were able to get the licensing for it. Was that Wild Cherry or something like that? So anyway, so it was cute, and it worked, and the groove worked, and we had a track made and all this other stuff. And we get out there, and I should have known, that this was like one of the worst things we could have ever done. Anyway, we got out there, we did our thing, and all of a sudden, we're all just kind of going, and we're hearing, we're like, oh my God, there's, something's going on with our in-ears, like, like what's going, like the electricity, something's happened with electricity. And we're like, no, we're getting X'd.
Oh. Is it like a buzzer
it's
to
like
stop?
A big loud buzzer.
Oh no! Or is it do the celebrities? I'm not familiar. I'm familiar with the show, but
so
not.
they all get a buzzer, and when they want you to stop, they push it.
Oh no!
So we got 3 of the in our ears, and we were like, really? And anyway, and so again, like the sort of like the behind the scenes thing is you show up at this theater in Minneapolis. So I'm backtracking to what happened earlier that day. You show up at the theater, and you're basically there with a group 1 to 3, 1 to 3 p.m. shows up at noon or something like that. And then you get to be part of that round. Anyway, so there were only so many chairs in the lobby of this theater. And there's all these people with all sorts of weird costumes and weird makeup and weird everything. I mean, it was really like a freak show. I mean, it couldn't have been more like a freak show. And so we saw a group of people that had just performed, and they were now gathering their things and leaving. We wanted to go nab those chairs, and it was like they were like a zombie. They were called the Zombie Apocalypse. So I don't know if they're still around or even what they did, but they were done. And we went and kind of wanted to take their chairs. And the thing that sums up my whole experience with America's Got Talent was the guy that came up to me and says, "Has anybody seen my arm?" So, I mean, they had like, fake limbs and everything, that they did. It was just so awful. And then the producers come out and they tell you, they're like, yeah, if they give you some criticism, you fight back. We want good TV, kind of a thing. So they're coaching you to be belligerent, and they're coaching you to give them something,
People
kind
love
of
the
a thing.
conflict, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And what I should have said in hindsight, because what ended up happening was they gave us some very nice feedback. They said, you guys are lovely, obviously super talented, you can really play. They said, who picked that song? And it took everything in me to not say, your freaking producers picked this song.
Which would have been great TV, by the way.
But I felt like it would have probably,
Yeah.
I don't know, that's one of those judgment calls in the
Right.
minute. And because
What'd
they're
you
like,
say?
well, basically, I just said, I said that was me, and the feedback is like, if you guys, we need you to be current. This is not current. Why would you pick this song? And I wanted to say, because you guys couldn't get the freaking licensing for anything else that we do that's cool.
Yeah.
So that's the story of America's Got Talent.
How interesting, and it's such a new realm. So when they're kind of throwing you a little bit under the bus like that, you don't know what your artillery is. You don't know what you're able to use as ammo or not to stay safe. You're trying to stay safe.
I know.
'Cause you don't want to piss off the
Exactly.
producers and
and then who knows? I don't. Whatever.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah. But you got there.
I know, but we got there. So the whole thing.
I didn't even know this story.
That's just one of our other crazy stories.
Now, it is funny because I know of people who've done the voice thing and the American Idol thing.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of similar stories to where it's, it can't be just about the talent. Even the voice with the whole, like, but they're just turning their chairs. There's a lot more than just, it's getting those people to that point where they're to the backs of those judges. I do hear it's a lot of who has the interesting story. Who looks a certain way, who, and it's, they're building that. And that's a perfect, we're in line the whole time.
That just cracked me up. Oh my gosh. It was pretty funny. But they're like, we're going to, we're going to have you guys sign in at the registration table. We're going to show B-roll of
I
all
love
that.
They're giving you a bonnet. What is this for? Listen, you live on a farm.
Exactly.
This is your first time using electricity. Just go with it, okay?
Yeah.
What? Okay. And keep referencing Tilda. Who's Tilda? That's your cow. She's your best friend. Your family's starving, and you can't slaughter her because she's your friend.
Right.
But you have
That's
to
your
cook
motivation.
her.
Right,
Okay?
exactly.
Tilda.
Now
What?
Go.
Go. This is crazy, but that's TV.
I know, that is TV.
Now that's another thing. It's
Yeah.
weird because when I was starting out and the stuff I did before I got this kind of cover band area that we're in, I was living this kind of charmed life because I was in a group. They were called Timepiece, and they were very popular as a cover band, wedding band, all that good stuff. And then we were packing big rooms. We ended up playing at the Star Plaza Theater. So that was like the queen, all of a sudden we're at this 3,200, seat room. But what we started to do, because I loved songwriting, I wanted to be a songwriter, we started writing songs and integrating that into the show to where some of these diehard fans were coming for more of that than they were the covers. And it just was this beautiful thing. And I was convinced that I was maybe going to get to that other level. Like, I'm going to be a world famous songwriter, singer, and all that.
Right.
But at that lower level, when the success started happening, things were happening that don't happen now that I'm more corporate and public. Like there were times that you go to restaurants, you go somewhere, and people are approaching you, and it was interesting. It was fun at first, but there was a time where I'm just taking a walk through a mall or something, and that was going on. And again, it wasn't by droves, but it was enough to where I thought, oh wait. If you get like super big, then this is times 1,000.
Yeah, you get to whiff a little whiff of that, and it's like, ooh, man.
Now, not to say I would have done anything to still get to that level. I was ready. I'm like, what? I'll sing this. I'll dance like that. Whatever it takes. But later in life, you realize what a sweet spot we found because there's a lot that we still have to do. My God, a month ago, I was told to be this very, very wealthy person rented a very cool venue, and they wanted my band, but they also wanted a boy band sort of tribute, and they wanted us to do it. So cut to me in my living room wearing an all-white outfit with 3 other dudes doing NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, and New Kids on the Block dance moves.
Yeah.
And so it's like you still have to do a little bit of the dance monkey dance. I kind of dug it because I thought, oh, so this is what this would feel like, huh?
Yeah.
Because suddenly you're doing a bat, you know. But to know that this level that we're at is paying the bills, but we have a pretty good grip on our brand. I feel like, for the most part, even if I have to do some songs that I wouldn't have chosen, I feel like I'm always Robbie Celestin.
Yeah.
I feel like no matter what gig I'm doing, and if I do a corporate gig, as you well know, a lot of times we're doing what they're specifically paying you to play. Mm-hmm. I still feel like me, whereas I feel like there gets to be this one level of high celebrity where you're no longer anonymous, ever.
Right.
That's gone.
Yeah.
You know, your garbage is unsafe.
Yeah.
So that's gone. And then on top of that, you're really not in control. I would imagine you have to get to Beyonce level or something crazy. And even then, you're probably not in control, you know, of your brand and how you're presented. You're getting pulled in 1,000 directions at once, maybe 1,000,000. Where you and I are maybe pulled in 5 or 6, maybe 100. Oh, you're right. All right, I'll go with 100. But you know what I mean? Like, I would say more of a handful, because no matter where we get pulled, we're still primarily doing what we planned on doing. You know,
Yeah.
I got very lucky. Well, I'd say lucky. I'm not supposed to say lucky, but
No, I know.
when I got this gig and I was told that they would build a band around me and it'd be this corporate machine, I was also allowed to create my image and my version of that band.
Yeah.
You know, and I was allowed to be myself in that band, and they really leave me alone. I mean, there are set lists that we have to, you know, everybody in the company better learn this, or, you know, Old
Sure.
Town Road's a big deal, better learn it. Like, oh, all right, you know, but they leave me alone. And I don't know how much you can get that when you cross over to, you know, TV, movies, all that, you know.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of those boy band things, man,
Oh.
that is, those are engineered, like cultured in a petri dish kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and it's funny because sometimes I was noticing there were certain acts that, you know, it's like 5 dudes and they're not even harmonizing. And maybe it was like One Direction might have had a song out, and I was laughing about it because, like, wow, it's a good name because they're all just vocally going in only one direction. It's
One
like
direction,
5
yeah.
dudes, one note, you know. But you're right, Petri dish is well put. Yeah, they're building those things, and you know, and it's weird. And I think the American Idol culture, that's building a weird machine too, because first off, the TV, you know, the stories are there's a fakeness to it, you know. Even if it's real, it's a little fake, you know. And they're building people to just swing for the fences, sing every note you can, and deliver here. And they're not building them. They're not building their muscles. They're building that one song muscle. You know. So then I run into some of these past contestants who can't do a whole show.
Yeah.
You know, because you have to do a crappy gig.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't get low pay, good for you, but most likely it's going to be low pay. You're going to sing for 3 hours. You're going to build that muscle, you know? Yeah, it's a weird, we can go on and on about that.
Absolutely.
But the fact that you build something and it allowed you to be you, because now, especially the more I get to know you, the more I truly see you when I see you performing. It's pretty fantastic, you know? You come out of you when you're performing.
That's the best compliment ever. Thank you.
Really cool. And then as I got to talk to you about this stuff, you've engineered it, you know, and that's important. Hopefully you guys are getting that from listening to this. You know, it's beyond it. You dream it, but then you work toward it. You dream it, then you build it. Don't forget about the building part, everybody.
Yeah.
So you found your price point, you found your product. You build your website. The first version.
That was day one, right? Okay.
So and now that was what then became the Cover Girls. That was it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then the phone starts ringing, and by the way, I have to backtrack a little bit. When you were saying, well, you know, when you try putting your own idea into it as far as marketing and selling, you know, the group kind of did its own thing. It's still on you. You know, I mean, you build the feel of the group and the product.
Right.
And everyone has to still fall in line to what you are and who you are, and that's what has them coming back. So in the end, you're the captain of the ship, and you built something And I don't care how eclectic and how interesting any girl is that comes into it, you're the one who selected them. You're the one who felt the sparkle. I love that. You're so gorgeous and you're so sweet. I love the fact that other people, normal humans, would just say, "Yeah, I had this gut instinct," but yours was fairy dust. Like, well, there was fairy dust. Because it makes sense.
Yeah.
You're so kind and sweet that it makes sense that you don't have a gut. You have like a pouch of fairy dust. That makes sense to me. Like, all right. Like, oh man, I got a feeling about this. I have something shiny and beautiful. But you built it.
Yeah.
This is all because of you. I mean, whenever time is getting, whenever times are getting tough, whenever you're really feeling down, that is something you should always be able to walk away with, to know that the fact that you're stressed out is because you've built a machine that is so busy, and that you've done something the way you wanted to do it, and now it's rolling. And sure, now the stressful part is keeping up with the avalanche that you've created.
It's true. It's like running in front of it. It's kind of like not getting buried by it. That's such an apt analogy.
Because here we are now with you having teams out.
Yeah.
I mean, at some
point, back to Navy SEALs, baby.
Man, at some point, how many might you have out on like the busiest night ever?
Well, the busiest night. I mean, we have 8 or 9 women trained, and so that tends to lend itself to 2 pretty regularly. I think the most we've ever done is 3. But then we've had these jobs where we had a client in New York that brought 8 of us out there.
Wow.
So we can also do an expanded, pretty, spectacular, visually presentation with all of us. So it isn't just about, how many groups. It can be a big group too.
And then one of the most classic, bands in the world, Chicago. I mean, that's an iconic band.
Yes.
How does that happen?
Oh my gosh. It's interesting because you and I are in a dance about like, tell me how you built it. Tell me the nuts and bolts. And I'm telling you about the fairy dust, and I'm telling you about the magic, because it was really a lot of both. And the Chicago story comes in as pure and utter magic. That was just us being invited to come to New York City to play for a gala for Kelly Cares. Actually, if any of your listeners are Notre Dame people, Coach Kelly is the football coach. Obviously, he and his wife have a charity called Kelly Cares, and we were invited out to New York to perform as entertainment for that gala. And of course, being from Chicago and our kind of crazy self-esteem issue we have with coastal people, I was like super excited to finally like crack that nut to get invited out to New York. So, super excited about that. I'm going to knock them dead. And little did I know that was one of those just being in the right place at the right time. So we were scheduled to do 2 sets that night. We did our first set. We walked off the stage. Gentleman came up, tugged me on the sleeve, and said, "That man sitting over at table 8 next to the lady in red, wants to talk with you," and kind of whispered to me, "He's the manager of the band Chicago," and he just happened to be at our gig in New York because he's a Kelly Cares guy. He's part of the charity from Notre Dame. Wow. So he was out there, and sure enough, he gave me his card. He said, "I think you ladies are terrific. I'm always looking for new and interesting ways to keep the band fresh." They've been touring for 52 years straight. Oh God! I know. I can't even imagine
nonstop.
Nonstop. They're really proud of the fact they've never missed a date. They've never canceled a show. They've never missed a date. Anyway, 52 years, and they're just looking for somebody. Yeah, probably it's very, very close. Anyway, so I called them the next day, and that was the rest is history. I mean, they were coming to Chicago, so this would have been the spring of 2018. They were going to be coming through Chicago, coming to play at the Allstate Arena, and Peter, their manager, is incredibly gracious and incredibly generous. And literally every time I have picked up the phone to call him, he answers on one ring and will spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever it takes with me, answer my questions, tell me amazing stories just from their archives. Anyway, but so we were asked. He asked us, he said, "We're going to be coming through Chicago in June." This was May. We're going to be coming through Chicago next month. We're going to be at the Allstate Arena. Definitely, bring your girls to the show. We'd like to treat you to tickets. We'll get you in. We'll bring you backstage, have you meet the band. The first opening I don't want to get into too many of the details, but the first opening idea that he had was for us to be their opening act. So he said, we'd like for you guys to meet the band and get to see what we do and see what this would entail, kind of a thing. So sure enough, I'm, just like drop everything. We're going to see Chicago, as their guest on whatever, this was June 24th of 2018. And great, wonderful, fabulous. So 2 days later, he calls me again and he's like, since you guys are going to be there, why don't you guys? He's so
Chicago.
He's so busy, Chicago.
Yeah.
Anyway, why don't you guys plan to play with us? What?
With us.
With us, yeah. Here's some. I'll have Lee, the trumpet player, Lee Locknane. I'll have him send you some of our string arrangements, and you guys can figure out, what you want to play on that. And while you're at it, we're gonna, set aside a little, space on the stage for you guys can, do your thing. He says, do your thing. And I'm like, what? You want wait, we're going to do Cover Girls choreography to Chicago songs?
Oh my God.
I'm like mind blown. Yeah. Yeah.
That's huge.
It was huge. It was like, yeah. And it was huge. And we went and we killed it. It was awesome. And it was like the best night of my life ever. No, I shouldn't say that. The night I met my husband will always and forever be the best night of my life ever. But
but I know your husband's a musical guy. But he would be like, oh man, it's a toss up. But Chicago's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think he'd give me a little leeway there. Anyway, but then that night went real well, and we talked about the next year, and which would have been summer of 2019. And the opening act thing did not work because there were all sorts of factors that didn't come to pass, and things like tour buses and things that. Long story. But what they did was they brought us out to Vegas in February because they have a residency there at the Venetian every year. So we were out there playing for 3 weeks at the Venetian in Las Vegas with them. They had us on 10 songs. So it was about 50 minutes worth of their show. So we played their music, like I said, we brought their lush, iconic string parts, especially those 80s songs, those David Foster arrangements that everybody's hears in their head. That was us. So we were able to bring that element to their show, and then also our choreography. So again, they pushed us out front and just said, you guys, take the road. Take the whole lane, out front on the second half of, Hard Habit.
Did you have to rehearse with them?
We had one rehearsal. That was it. Thursday night.
And
boom.
Did they just look at you like, all right, it looks great? Or
yeah, pretty much. Actually, it was even less than that. It was, let's run the show and see what you guys see where we see it. Speaking of things sticking to the wall, they just kind of throw things at the wall and see what sticks. And we ran some things. They're like, roughly, you ladies stand over here, you ladies stand over here. And hey, why don't you switch places at this point in the song, and that'll be great. So we'll run it, great, and we move on to the next song. So so there was a lot of really fried brains at the end of the night. Going, do any of you guys remember what we were supposed to do on that one? So
at some point you're up. Like you're center stage or something. Do you guys like move up to the front? At some point?
And that was part of the deal too. So like this song, we would start in these positions, and we would move, and then this song, you're going to stay in the back, and until this part, you're going to come forward and take the front of the stage and show off a little bit, and then this song, you guys are off, and then you come back, and then anyway. So so we we were at the end of the night, like between the five of us, we were so fried. We'd been traveling all day and rehearsing all day, and Can you remember what we were supposed to do there? I think that was where we start on the stairs. Oh my gosh. So anyway, so opening night was really the first time we had run a lot of this stuff with their stage direction and with their ideas. And then afterwards they're like, no, you need to just start over here this time, and then we'll move over there. So then we changed it after the first night, and we, they kept tinkering with it, which was a treat. It was absolutely great to be like in their creative process and to have them thinking of us so integrally that they're like, no, that we think at that part of the arrangement, you guys should, do this instead or something like that. So it was, they were kind and generous and welcoming and so incredibly talented.
And they're legends.
And legends. I know, exactly. And like I said, mind blown. It was one of the most amazing. Although I will say, on the other hand, it was just a gig. It was just like the biggest gig we've ever done, but it was all the same things. It was like we showed up, And they had sent us a chart in the wrong key. So we started playing it together just to run it. And it was like, sounded like a train horn or something because it was all, dissonant and everything. And we figured out that they had given us the chart in the wrong key because they transposed it. And anyway, so so we did what we had to do. We had to memorize it up another, up a step or whatever it was. So
you're reading and then transposing as you're reading.
We had memorized everything.
Oh, okay.
We had memorized everything. So really, that was just a matter of in our own minds thinking of it in A instead of B flat or whatever it was. Anyway, so but like on that level, that's just a gig. That's just what we do. We show up, we run it, we figure out where the potholes are, and step around them the next time, kind of a thing.
That's where doing this again and again and again and again is that's where that comes into play too, because everybody gets so freaked out and stressed about the big gig.
Yeah.
And if you do this enough, it's all just another gig.
It is.
One of the younger newcomers that I was telling you about, she filled in for us for like it's kind of a bigger gig than most, and must have been, I don't know, 800, 900 people, and she hadn't seen that, and she was talking about that. Like, boy, how do you prepare for this? I'm a little nervous about it. And I just looked at her like, what are you talking about?
Right, like that's nothing.
You do the same thing here that you did in that bar you were singing at 2 weeks ago. It's the same thing. Yeah. But man, well, wait a minute. And then we're talking about like anonymity, which I couldn't say before. You run the risk of losing that. You're not so anonymous if you're doing a bunch of shows like that. You never know. Which could get interesting.
It could get interesting.
Being
so far, so good. I mean, I'll let you know.
Yeah.
I'll let you know when it happens, if it happens. So.
Well, but here's the man. I mean, what a perfect like roundabout way to your personal story and your journey, which is long from over. But the fact that you saw something, you thought it was great. You built it, you put your vibe on this. And again, no matter what the pieces are and what the pieces do individually to add to the overall flavor of the stew, it's your recipe. You're the one that's constantly adding it to it. And you're the one that, everyone's calling because they want more. I want many, many bowls of this stew. And the fact that you put that twist on it and it gets so much work, but then it gets the attention of someone, a legendary band.
Yeah.
That have done this, longer than most, and they're the standard of professionalism for that group, and that's a standard. Creativity, everything, and for you to blip on their radar. And for them to say, yeah, we want the stew in our restaurant. I mean, that is such a tribute to everything you've built. That is the biggest pat on the back you could ever give yourself. Is that happening right there? I mean, all of a sudden, that girl that had the panic attack on stage many years ago has suddenly just totally won the battle. You've totally climbed whatever mountain what was put in front of you because your body put something in front of you that day, and you had a choice. Like I can somewhat cope with this and be somewhat accomplished after this, or I can just run screaming the other way. And instead, you conquered the whole damn thing. And this roundabout, this whole journey of yours has circled back. And man, if that girl would have even known,
idea
what that moment, and that moment must have felt like this is the end.
Oh God, yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
It ended up being the beginning, and kudos to you for taking it and turning it into a victory, like a life victory. And not only could it not have happened to a sweeter person, but it's just so impressive. You're very impressive,
Thank you, Robbie.
You got to feel good.
I do. Well, I feel blessed. I feel blessed more than anything. I just feel like, this whole thing has worked out almost in spite of me in some ways, too. I don't know if you ever feel that way, but,
Yeah, sure. But you built it.
But thank you for giving me that perspective.
Yeah, I mean, man, I got chills just thinking about it now because of that. I'm a big Chicago fan.
Oh my gosh, and being and being on that stage, I'll tell you, I mean, Heaven better have something pretty good up her sleeve because there were a couple of those nights when everybody gets their cell phones out in the audience and they go back and forth on the ballad, with the whole place lit up. Oh my God! I mean, it can't get any better than that. I mean, I just can't imagine having it be better than that. So, kind of like I almost forgot my notes. It's standing there, just taking it all in.
When I had to do that boy band thing, I was thinking of something very funny that we get to experience, because I've had a couple of nice instances where you've been on some of these shows too, where I've worked with some legends, and then I got to be an opening act. I got to experience these little things, but it's funny how sometimes, oh wow, we're playing this, and sometimes we're that. Sometimes we're a rock star tonight.
Yeah.
We're here, or we're the belle of the ball over here, or we're this bar band over. And I started to realize that my whole career is basically Quantum Leap, the TV show.
Yes, you jump in and you come out as somebody new.
Yeah, I
right,
feel
exactly.
like that's. Yeah, I feel like I woke up like, wait, what am I? Am I in a boy band right now? It's that's
awesome.
what it is, right?
Totally.
And it's so much fun. And but man, you're the perfect example of work, though. I mean, I feel like that's what I'm walking away with the most, is put the work in.
Yeah,
because if you don't try, you'll never know. Had you not tried,
I know, right?
and that was such an odd, again, acting, dancing, the violin, let that be a lesson to all you guys. Seriously. And they say good things come in threes anyway. So, I mean, if you happen to be, a bread maker who is also a yodeler, who happens to be a shoemaker, try to combine those and just see what happens. Like, oh my gosh, he made these bread shoes and he yodels. Like, I gotta go see this guy. You've proven that.
I love it.
Take the formulas, try it, whatever it is. People try to do whatever it is and see what happens. At the very least, you're going to hone something, and you're going to make this fun ride. Because if you loved doing it, I have news for you. If you truly love doing what you're doing, then if it doesn't become a success, well, guess what? You're still doing what you love, in some facets. So if you want to be a bread making, shoe wielding yodeler, and it doesn't fly for you, but you've managed to do it just a few more times, then you're still doing what you love. And every time you do it, even if it fails, you've still done something you love. And to me, if I'm doing something I love and it fails, I've still won.
Yeah.
Joke's on the world, because I actually loved doing what I just did that failed.
Yeah, exactly.
So, it's the best way to keep winning. Try to do what you love, so that even when you win, even when you lose,
you win.
You win. Yeah. That's a good lesson.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Wow. Just
well done.
Well, have you had fun?
I've had a ball, Robbie. This is awesome.
Again, I can't, I'm gushing because I do think you're one of the kindest people that I've come across. I can really relate to you on a personal level, which is very cool. And it's not always easy to find in the industry.
No, I agree. And I know your listeners understand this about you, obviously, if they follow you for any length of time, but you are one of the most thoughtful, considerate, and supportive people in our industry, and kudos to you for keeping your integrity in what can be otherwise kind of a scratchy place.
Oh, look at that. What a love fest. Having a love fest.
Yeah.
All right, so all you folks with those three weird things that don't seem like they're a thing, make them a thing.
Make them a thing.
Go be successful. You can be a cover girl too. Bread maker, shoe maker, yodeler. You know what I want? I want that person to be out there somewhere listening, like, oh my God, he's talking to me. And when they end up with like a big deal, I'm going to get a call like, this is all because of you.
I love it.
Well, thank you so much, folks. You know how this works. I give you just enough time to fall in love with the person, so I know you love her. Jen Lowe, where can they find you?
Okay.
Plug away.
CoverGirlsViolinShow.com is our website. We are also at The Cover Girls Violin Show on Facebook and at Cover Girls Violins on Instagram.
Are there any YouTube videos of you with Chicago? Anything to find? That would be fun.
Yeah, if you say Chicago with violins, I think
they just appear.
I think I keyworded them well enough. That
I like when you said if you say, not if you type. If you say it 3 times, and then they'll appear with bread shoes.
Exactly.
So if you
keyword, if you put Cover Girls and Chicago in the same search, you might get it. Even if you just put violins and Chicago.
Yeah.
Vegas.
It's fun, guys. I
would be
saw
awesome.
it.
You'll see it.
Guys, look for it. It's so much fun. But go to all of the places. Go to all of those sites. Find this woman. And for you people looking for interesting entertainment, I get to do these shows and I get to see it happen. I've seen the product. It's a lot of fun. Book the product. I'm not saying that just because she's right here in the room. I'm saying it because it's really cool. It's really unique and it's worth every penny. So look for it. And at the very least, YouTube it because it's fun to watch. It's just fun. So, well, thank you so much. There you go, folks. So have a great month, have a great week, have a great day. Go out and find your smile. You did it.
Woohoo!
Look at that. I'm waiting for the bread chew guy.
Yodel guy. Oh, you are a delight.
Welcome to my life so far. You'd think by now I'd be a star. I may be long-winded, but hey, there's just so much I have to say. Maybe lick your lips when you're hungry. Maybe drop your head when you're sorry. Maybe shake a bit when you're worried. That's just